Welcome to Mr. Holloway's Foundational Python Skills course. In this video, we're going to talk about built-in functions. Okay. Now, first question is what is a function? A function is simply a helper. It's used for repeatable tasks. For things that we're going to do often, we use functions, and we can even make our own custom functions as well. But in this video, we're going to look specifically at some built-in functions. Now I'm going to switch over to Python, and this is the official documentation. Don't worry, I'm not going to spend too much time on just the documentation itself. It can be a little bit intimidating for first-timers, but I just want to point out that in the documentation it shows all of the built-in functions in Python, and these are all of them here. And the one that we've been working with is print. So we work with print. We've done type. We've done str. And there's a few others that we've done. But these are the built-in functions that are already there. You don't have to do anything. And we're going to look at why functions are so useful now. But before we go into the custom function where we build our own functions, we're going to look at these built-in functions. Okay. So as I said before, a function is like a helper. It helps us to reduce just repetitiveness. And so when we have repeated actions, we just pull out a function. So imagine a tool chest, and sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a screwdriver, sometimes you may need a drill. You don't always need the exact same code all the time, so you just pull out some of the things that you need. And in this case, we're going to go over a few of the functions. So the first one that I'm just going to do is the one we already know about, and that's the print function. So the print function, we can do all sorts of things, but we can print an output to the screen. And so I can say hello world, and we already know about that. That's pretty straightforward. Okay. As you know, we can do print, and we can add numbers, we can subtract, multiply. So I could say 108 times 23, and we can run it again, and that will give me the result. Okay, so that is the print function. Another function that we're going to look at is and let me put the ones up here. So I'll say print. So that's one. Okay. Another one we're going to look at is the round function. This is a very useful function, and it has a lot of situations where you may want to use this. But let's say I have a variable, and I'm going to call it a. Actually, we'll call it num, and I'm going to let's call it 3.85. Okay. Now, I'm going to print this, but instead of printing 3.85, I actually want to round it. So let's go ahead and round this. And I'm going to use the round function. I'm going to say round. And then as an argument, I'm going to throw a num. Okay, and let's see what we get. And we get 4. Okay, so that's what we get by rounding it. So let's look at the behavior of this. So let's say I was going to do 3.1. Where do you think it's going to round off to? Let's see. Let's try it. And it's going to round down. So what is the cutoff point? Let's say 3.5. So is it going to round up, or is it going to round down? Let's see. And it rounds up to 3.5. So that's the round function. Again, it's something that you can use. It's a built-in function. It's already there. You get the point. Now, the other one I want to talk about is the PAL. So the PAL built-in function. And this is basically just creating numbers with the power of whatever we want to do. So for example, I'll do num1, and I'm going to say 10 is equal to 10. So I've declared and assigned a value. And then we're going to use the PAL function to raise this to the power of 2. So I'm going to say PAL. And then I'm going to add my my argument inside of PAL, which is going to be num. And then let's run this and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to run this, and we get an error. Okay, this is a fairly easy error to fix. But in my previous video, and I'll put a link to the video. But in my previous video, we talked about arguments. Right now, we have one argument here. And this error says, PAL missing a required argument. And we need to add another argument. Okay. So with the PAL, since we're raising it to a power, we want to raise it to the power of 2. So we're adding the number itself, and we're going to raise it to the power of 2. And now let's see what we get now. So we're going to run it, and we've raised it to the power of 2. So this is 10 basically squared, and it becomes 100. If we want to raise it to the power of 3, we can go ahead and do that as well. Now will give us 1,000. All right, so that is the POW function, and again, these are very useful. Let's do another one. Now this is the input function. Input is really useful for situations, I would say mainly when we're working like we are now in a console situation where we're asking, where we are inputting information or coding in this type of environment. So let's look at it. So here's the input statement. I'm going to just do input. Okay, so basically it allows the user to engage with your program. So I could say, how is your day? Okay, now this is actually something we don't want to do. I'm going to just change this up in a second, but I'm just going to write this. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to just go ahead and run this, and it's going to ask me. And now on this side, I can actually interact with this. So I could say going well. Okay, that's actually a bad use, but let's talk about something actually more specific. So instead of doing this, I'm going to I'm going to say enter a number. Okay, and then the user is going to enter a number, but instead of just writing the input statement, I want to assign it a value. So I'm going to say num1. Okay, so what this is going to do is that when the user enters this information, it's going to assign the value to this variable. Okay, and it's not going to go on any further. So let's do another one. So what we're going to do is let's just add 2 numbers. So I'm going to say num2, and that's equal to input, enter a second number. All right, so we're going to do that, and then what we want to do is simply print num1 plus num2. All right, so let's see how this works. Let me go ahead and clear that. I'm going to run it, and now notice it says enter a number, and it gives me a place to enter the number. It will not execute the whole program. It's going to stay here because it's waiting for the user to respond. So I'm going to add 10. I'm going to add 10 here, and then I'm going to press enter. Okay, and then it goes down to line 4, and it says enter a second number, and then it's going to assign the value to that, and then I'm going to put 20. And then now, if you notice, we get this 1020, which is an issue. Okay, which we're going to go ahead and fix this in a second. But if you guys remember, well, you probably from my casting video, we talked about different data types, and so right now we're getting 1020, and that's not what we want. We actually want to add them together, so we want to have basically 30. That's what the answer should be. Now the input takes in a string, so what's happening is that it's converting this into a string, and so we're just adding the string. So how do you think we can fix this? There's a number of ways we can fix it. All right, so the first way is simply we're just going to convert what was entered. So I'm going to say int. We're going to convert it into an int. Okay, and then I'm going to convert this into an int as well, and you'll see we'll get different results. So we should get the result that we're looking for. All right, so in this case, let's go ahead and actually, you know what, let's just put them side by side. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to put num1, and then we'll do num2, and we'll look at the results side by side. Okay, just to give you an idea of the behavior of this. Okay, so again, let me cancel, and we're going to enter a number. So I'm going to do 10, and then we'll do 20, and then notice here we get the 1020, which is this, which is just printing them. Okay, and because they're actually strings. And in this case, we're going to print them and convert them, which gives us the 30. Now, all along, I really hadn't planned to get this in-depth to the into writing a program, but it just goes to show you we're actually using built-in function. So we're using the input function, we're using the print function, and we're also using int. So these are just some of the built-in functions that we're using in this video. So the last one I want to cover is the what's called the help function. Okay, and the help function is really useful. I don't use it much, but I'm just going to type in help, and notice what happens. So I'm going to say help, and then I'm going to go ahead and run it over here and watch what happens. So now it says welcome to Python 3.1's help utility. So if this is your first time using Python, you should definitely check out the tutorial on the internet, blah blah blah. So this basically is a helper. It's like a built-in help tutorial with documentation. And so here it's probably using the input statement. It says to get a list of available modules, keywords, symbols, topics, type in modules, keywords, blah blah blah. Let's try something. So I'm just going to type in, I know there's a module called random, and I'm just going to type in random. It's going to give us all kind of information that it's really not important now, but just to show you all of the things that this help function can do. All right. So that is a lot of information. Don't worry about it because this is not something that we're going to need, and we don't even know how to read this at this point yet, but we will learn how to read through the documentation at some point in this series. All right, so I just wanted to cover built-in functions, and coming back to Python, these are all the built-in functions. They are things that are already done for you. You don't have to create any extra kind of code. They're helper functions. They're always available, and it just helps us to reduce repetitiveness or us having to do things. And then a lot of these are valuable. Obviously print, and it depends on the situation. You're not going to always use these, but some of these are really helpful. Couldn't go through all of them in this video, but I did go over a few, but I believe these are like 67 built-in Python functions that you can use. All right, now the next video we're going to be covering custom functions. So we're going to actually make our own functions, and then we'll move on to actually using those functions in some of our code. All right, so if you like the video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps. And I will see you in the next video where we will talk about custom functions. We're going to make our own functions. Class is now dismissed.